The moment Kizaru set foot on Egghead, his fate was sealed in rebellion, and Oda chose the perfect arc for Kizaru to finally step out of his unclear justice. Because this is the arc where we finally move past the simplistic messaging of dreams are important and free will is important. These are things Kizaru never really considers. And after all, Egghead is the arc of rebellion, one of the most meaningful representations of the internal conflict between rebellion and obedience in the Egghead Arc, as discussed by Mr Moj and serving as the foundation for this video, is depicted through the admirals, who symbolize three distinct faces of this struggle: the one who has already broken free, the one who may never break free, and the one who must decide. Let's begin by focusing on the tragedy of Admiral Kizaru. Admiral Kizaru, consistent with the overarching metaphor of the arc, sees himself as cog in the machine, who is content to follow the orders of the world government. This portrayal aligns with his depiction throughout One Piece. Kizaru has always been the ultimate servant among the admirals, never pursuing his own agenda and only ever carrying out what is asked of him. However, in this arc, there's a subtle sense that he might regret his role. Despite his great power, he has no real freedom. Oda hints at this master-servant relationship with small details, like when Kizaru offers to bring tea to Saturn. This simple act shows how deeply Kizaru has accepted his role as a servant. Kizaru's pivotal moment comes when he must choose between helping Vegapunk or following Saturn's orders to kill him. This is a turning point where Kizaru must choose between following his heart and rebelling like others in this arc, or staying loyal to the world government by killing Vegapunk. Oda shows this inner conflict in a subtle, tragic way. Kizaru decides to kill Vegapunk almost like a puppet controlled by an unseen force. This imagery suggests that Kizaru's fate might have been decided for him, forcing him to obey his masters even if it hurts his own sense of humanity. Vegapunk even asks, does Kizaru have no heart? A question Kizaru might be asking himself as he solemnly carries out his orders. By the end of the arc, after choosing duty over his humanity, Kizaru is left completely alone. He stands on a deserted island, surrounded by unconscious marines, while everyone he cared about, Vegapunk, Sentomaru, Kuma, and Bonnie, is gone. Kizaru now has no one but himself. Oda seems to highlight a key point here. While other world government agents in this arc were driven by their personal bonds to rebel, Kizaru was the only one who couldn't do it. The others made the hard but right choice to be human and value their relationships over blind obedience. As a result, they likely feel more fulfilled, while Kizaru is the only one left broken. But why couldn't Kizaru bring himself to disobey orders just this once? The answer of this question is Kizaru himself. He does not understand what real justice is. Or rather, I believe Kizaru does not understand what his role is or what his purpose is. And the only way for him to figure it out is through combat. Kizaru refers to himself as a cog in the machine, which can also be translated to corporate slave. Kizaru's Vivre card also states that he prefers to follow orders and not to lead. Kizaru seems to have a lot of self-worth issues, and it's because he does not understand what his purpose is. He is actively trying to find out just what it is that he wants. In a world filled with dreamers, he is a man with no dreams. It says he doesn't have to care much about what he does, but we know that is not true. When Rayleigh stopped him from catching the Straw Hats, Kizaru got so angry that he captured 500 pirates. Doesn't seem like a completely carefree man to me. Kizaru is usually pretty eager to head into battle. He even wanted to smoke with Kaido and Big Mom, and people say he was afraid of Ben Beckman. I was always curious about why this supposedly carefree man would want to be eager to fight and accomplish his goals, when in actuality, if he really is that carefree, he should have been more like Kuzan in a sense. And then with the most recent chapter, this line from Kizaru really drove home the point to me. His ideal is that he won't ignore a man determined to fight for his duty. It really seems like he respects people who fight for something that they believe in, which is surprising considering the fact that, he is Kizaru. Why does Kizaru respect such people? Because they are the complete opposites of him. I believe Kizaru really desires to fight such people because he wants to understand just what they fight for, what their sense of justice is, what their purpose is, how far they will go for their goals. And I think this really puts a lot of things into perspective. Maybe Kizaru went into a rage after Sabari, not just because he could not capture the Straw Hats, but also because he could not understand the situation. He could not understand why the Straw Hats would actively put themselves in danger or why Rayleigh would help them. He wanted to fight Kaido and Big Mom because he wanted to know what they fight for. He has no desire to lead because he just can't. Leading is to be done by someone with a strong will, someone who has a sense of justice or knows what they want. Kizaru wants to understand just what it means to have a dream, what it means to have a sense of justice, what it means to believe in something. That is what Unclear Justice means. Kizaru does not know what to believe in, but here lies the further genius of Oda's writing. Kizaru now exists as the most interesting man in One Piece. This is actually the second time Oda has written a character like this. We've seen this exact story of Kizaru before in Admiral Kuzan, the one who has already broken free. The Ohara incident has striking parallels to the Egghead Arc. Both are centered around the world government's attempts to silence scholars conducting dangerous research into the true history. Both arcs involve a buster call and feature a pivotal turning point for an admiral, a moment of great shame and moral collapse as they find themselves choosing obedience over humanity. In Egghead, Kizaru turns on his best friend for the world government, just as Kuzan once did in Ohara. The scenarios are identical, with both admirals echoing similar rhetoric about their roles as cogs in the machine and their inability to defy the world government's orders. Both admirals have their morals questioned by their best friends as they seem to suppress their humanity to enact the world government's heartless justice. Kuzan, however, was fortunate enough to witness the horrific genocide carried out by the world government as they destroyed the civilian ship at Ohara, giving him pause and leading him to spare his best friend in the end. But this experience left Kuzan broken and questioning his own humanity and sense of justice. Kizaru, unfortunately, was not given such a wake-up call and ended up carrying through with murdering his best friend. The experience seems to have left Kizaru broken in much the same way. Ultimately, both characters are left traumatized by the blood on their hands from obeying the world government government Kuzan by the blood of innocent civilians at Ohara, and Kizaru by the blood of his own best friend. But this is where the beauty of Kizaru's potential lies. We know that Kuzan's moral rock bottom was the trigger for his journey toward reclaiming his individuality. It marked the beginning of Kuzan's arc of reflection, where he questioned his actions, the world government, and eventually left it behind, ultimately rebelling against it. Oda has now positioned Kizaru in a similar place, punished by the unbearable guilt of his actions. Kizaru now faces the same choice that Kuzan once did, to begin a new journey or remain the same. This is the brilliance of the parallel between the two admirals. In Kizaru, we see the obedient man that Kuzan once was. Just as in Kuzan, we see the free man that Kizaru could one day become. The trigger for Kuzan's path to freedom, and potentially for Kizaru's as well, lies in the power of personal bonds. In contrast, we have the third admiral, Akainu, the one for whom we don't even know if change is possible. Akainu has always been the most absolute of the admirals, dogmatically following the world government's justice and even taking extreme measures like bombing civilian ships or executing marines who desert. And yet, Akainu seems happy in this role as the world government's enforcer. All signs suggest otherwise. Akainu was once a warrior on the front lines, but now he seems to be a neutered, chained pet, his own desires and views constantly curbed by his masters. In Egghead, we are reminded that Akainu does have personal bonds he once spared Kuzan, despite their duel to the death. Because he could not bring himself to kill his former comrade, he also empathizes with Kizaru's pain. Akainu is essentially the picture of a man who is certainly human deep down, with personal bonds and empathy, yet so deeply devoted to serving the system that he has buried his humanity too deep to recover. This is why in both Kuzan and Kizaru's pivotal character moments, Akainu serves as the contrast. The destruction of the civilian ship at Ohara, ordered coldly by Akainu, shakes Kizan's faith in the system. At Egghead, Akainu heartlessly berates Kizaru for not being diligent enough in his duties, even as Kizaru grieves having to kill his best friend. So far, Akainu represents unshakable, inhumane obedience. Whether Oda has plans to unearth Akainu's humanity remains to be seen, but at the moment, between Ohara and Egghead, Oda has painted a deliberate spectrum through the three admirals, the free man, the divided man, and the chained man.